Buhari government charged Nnamdi Kanu, journalists, orders for terrorism and fails to declare bandits as terrorists. Falana. Welcome to the news and thank you for tuning in to listen. Human rights lawyer activist Femi Falana, senior advocate, has raised concerns over the recurrent issue affecting the country, especially regarding security. Falana noted that it is wrong for the Nigerian government to be referring to terrorists as bandits, noting that the action contravenes the provision of the Constitution. He added that the Nigerian government should desist from portraying terrorists as bandits since their activities have been described according to the law as acts of terrorism. Falana, who is also the interim chairman of Alliance on Surviving COVID-19 and Beyond, ASCAB, further accused the Nigerian government of failing to prosecute terror suspects and sponsors of terrorism, who were arrested and put in detention in May 2021. He stressed that the Nigerian government had claimed that the arrested suspect will be arraigned upon the resumption of duty by judicial staff workers who had embarked on industrial action. But the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, has failed to file a suit against the suspect months after the industrial action was suspended. The renowned lawyer also pointed out that the unanimous resolution made by the two federal legislatures requesting President Muhammad Buhari to identify and declare all the known leaders and sponsors of the bandits as terrorists have been ignored. Falana, in a statement obtained by Sahara reporters on Sunday, stated it is public knowledge that the dangerous criminal elements who kidnapped the Chibok and Dapchi secondary school girls in the Northeast Zone in 2015 and 2017 respectively were not referred to as bandits. They were called terrorists by the federal government and the media. The description was correct that the abduction carried out by the criminal elements were acts of terrorism. But for reasons best known to the federal government, the criminal elements who are currently involved in the brutal killing of innocent people and abduction of thousands of people, including primary school pupils in the Northwest Zone, are called bandits and not terrorists. A few weeks ago, the so-called bandits downed the fighter jet belonging to the Nigerian Air Force. Curiously, it was reported by the federal government and the media that the act was perpetrated by a gang of bandits. But contrary to such misleading description of terrorists as bandits, the mayhem and violent attacks unleashed on unarmed people and willful destruction of properties by dangerous criminal elements are classified as acts of terrorism under the Terrorism Prevention Act 2011 as amended by the Terrorism Prevention Amendment Act 2013. For the avoidance of doubt, Section 2 of the Terrorism Prevention Act states as follows. Act of terrorism means an act which is deliberately done with malice, a forethought, and which may seriously harm or damage a country or an international organization. It is intended or can reasonably be regarded as having been intended to unduly compel a government or international organization to perform or abstain from performing any act, seriously intimidate a population, seriously destabilize or destroy the fundamental, political, constitutional, economic or social structures of a country or an international organization, or otherwise influence such governments or international organization by intimidation or coercion, and an attack upon a person's life which may cause serious bodily harm or death. It involves or causes, as the case may be, an attack upon a person's life which will cause serious bodily harm or death, kidnapping of a person, destruction of a government or public facility, a transport system, an infrastructure facility, including an information system, a fixed platform located on the continental shelf, a public place or private property, likely to endanger human life or result in major economic loss, the seizure of an aircraft, ship, or any other means of public or goods transport, and diversion or the use of such means of transportation for any of the purposes in paragraph B, IV of this subsection. The manufacture, possession, acquisition, transport, supply of or use of weapon, explosive or nuclear, biological or chemical weapons, as well as research into and development, of biological and chemical weapons without lawful authority. The release of dangerous substance or causing of fire explosion of foods, the first of which is to endanger human life, interference with or disruption of the supply of water, power, or any other fundamental natural resource, the effect of which is to endanger human life. From the foregoing, it is undoubtedly clear that the criminal elements who abducted unarmed citizens, killed them, or released them after collecting ransom to the tune of several millions of naira are terrorists. The criminal elements who attack and down military planes are terrorists. The criminal elements who attack police stations and seize weapons to attack innocent people are terrorists. The criminal elements who attack correctional centers and release inmates therein are terrorists. The criminal elements who destroy government properties or public facilities are terrorists. But the federal government has deliberately refused to declare the bandits as terrorists and persecute them. In May this year, the Federal Ministry of Justice announced the arrest and detention of 800 terror suspects and 400 suspects of terrorism. It was further announced that the suspects would be arraigned once the industrial action of the judicial staff was called off. The strike was called off over 3 months ago, but the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation has not deemed it fit to file charges against the suspects and arraign them at the Federal High Court. As part of its anti-corruption policy, the Buhari administration regularly engages in naming and shaming alleged looters of public funds from time to time. Armed robbery suspects are paraded by the police from time to time, but the federal government has ruled out the publication of the names of the sponsors of terrorism on the ground that it is prejudicial to fair hearing. In total frustration, the Northeast Governors Forum recently applied for the fiat of the Attorney General of the Federation to prosecute the hundreds of terror suspects languishing in military custody in Maiduguri, Borno state for years without trial. The request was turned down without any justification. A few days ago, the report of the panel of inquiry set up by the Zamfara state government to probe the activities of terrorists in the state was published. 2 former governors and some emirs were indicted in the report. The state government has since accepted the recommendation of the panel that the suspect be persecuted. Although terrorism is a federal offense, the authorities in Abuja have not ordered the arrest and persecution of the highly placed sponsor of terrorism in Zamfara State. In 2017, the federal government announced the proscription of the indigenous people of Biafra for agitating for the establishment of the state of Biafra. The leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mr. KANU, is currently facing a charge of terrorism and treason at the Federal High Court. The federal government has since declared a full-scale war on IPOB members in view of the killings and destruction of property being perpetrated in the southeast region by alleged gunmen. In 2019, the federal government proscribed the Islamic movement in Nigeria, IMN, was prescribed for allowing its members to embarrass the federal government by demanding for the release of the leader, Ibrahim Zaki. From the illegal custody of the State Security Service, which had defied the order of the federal court to release him and his wife. In a desperate bid to silence the radical wing of the mass media in the country, the federal government has stigmatized some journalists and charged them with terrorism. For instance, Mrs. Emperor, Ogbonna and Abba Jalingo were arrested and charged with terrorism charges at the Federal High Court for daring to accuse the governor of Abia and Cross River State governor of corruption. In August 2019, the State Security Service SSS arrested and detained Mr. Omoyele Sowore for planning a peaceful rally against the Buhari administration. While he was in detention, the SSS secretly applied for an ex parte order to have Sowore detained for 90 days for the purpose of investigating his alleged terrorist activities, even though there was no evidence to support the application. The Federal High Court ordered that Sowore had be detained for 45 days. At the end of the investigation, the SSS confirmed that there was no scintilla of evidence linking Sowore